We are going to talk a little bit about branding today to kick off our Project 4. Project 4 will actually be where we are going to rebrand a rock band, which is really cool and super fun, and I'm excited to get started. But before we do that, we need to learn a little bit about branding and how to do that. People always think branding is just making a logo. They think that once you have the mark, like the Nike check or whatever, that defines a brand, but that is so wrong. Like the mark itself is not a brand. The brand has to do with encapsulating a lot of things into the visuals of a company or an identity or a celebrity, which is really an identity, like because all of these things, whether it's a company or a celebrity or a band, they all have personality. So what a brand really does, you could do this a million ways. One way we're going to do this time is use try to understand the resources, processes, and values of a company. And the thing is that these really need to reflect reality. I think a lot of times we look at the RPV, as I'll call it over and over again, of a company, and they want it to be what they think it should be. So let's say a company like BP, they're an oil company. They drill um, in the middle of the ocean. They destroy ecosystems, and they might want to be perceived as eco-friendly. But in reality, uh, to say that is ridiculous. You're not fooling anyone. We know what's happened. We know what's been done. It's kind of like you can't fool people and say that your RPV is something that it's not. So really what we're out to do and what brands should do and what they've become is that they should reflect reality. Reality is way more interesting and way more important because honestly, though the masses, people who buy the things and are use the things, can be stupid at times for sure. I mean, we all are, and we've all believed lies, and we're like, no way. But if we find it out eventually, and we'd rather you have been honest, honestly, and those are the companies that survive and do well. Um, so anyway, so what are the RPV? You're going to be developing this for your band. So you're going to be like studying your band and understanding what makes them move, what makes them work. So what is an RPV? An RPV are resources, and that's the things a company or entity has. Processes, it's the way they do the things that makes them different. And values, that's the things that make them tick. So let's look at Microsoft. Microsoft is a company that has come a long, long way, and their resources are things that they have. And this isn't like awards that a band has gotten. Oftentimes people want to make this about awards or like money. It's not. It really isn't. It's about things that they have. So Microsoft, what they have is probably the smartest people in the world. Microsoft, their recruitment system's amazing. They have some incredibly smart people. They have a really tight internal culture. They all understand the Microsoft culture. They get it. They're all about Microsoft. They're about Windows, which is their operating system. That's a huge resource for them. It's something they've developed and is transformed over time and really defines them. Office, which is their uh, product that's for corporate and for people, and Xbox, which is the future. I mean, honestly, Xbox is one of their most valuable assets. Their processes, that's how they do what they do, look like this. This isn't a company that runs normally. They were founded on this idea of the stack review system, and what that is excuse me, it's a way for them to review you based on your performance. So if you're in sales, they'll put your name on a board, followed by the 10 other people in your sales department, and they'll rank you, and the bottom ones get cut. Now, this is all well and good in McDonald's or something. Well, I wouldn't even say that, honestly. This breeds fear, I think. But What the stack review system does is that it allows the best to survive. That's great, but it also inhibits creativity. Um, they have a product-oriented structure where everything is done through silos, which means um, if you are in the Xbox world, you never touch the Windows world. So if you're a designer for Xbox, you'll constantly be in that tank or silo, like you don't get to work on the office stuff. This is cool because you become a expert, but it also is terrible because you nothing looks the same. Xbox doesn't look like Windows, doesn't work like Windows, but that's what makes them different. Values that Microsoft runs on are enterprise solutions. These are this big things that scale in enterprise solutions. That's like things for companies. So, like for instance, if you buy a Microsoft product, you're buying it for, if you're a normal size medium company, you're buying it for 50,000 people. I mean, that's a great market for Microsoft to get. So, big things that scale, enterprise solutions, and Microsoft is its own value. They're obsessed with themselves. When they're at a Microsoft event, people legitimately just laugh at all inside jokes. People from departments across the world. I mean, it's funny because they're all about themselves. So let's look at Microsoft's logo. This is one of their not original. Gosh, that'd be ridiculous. This is a older logo. Now look at this logo. It's a sans serif font. It's got this little notch in the middle. This moving forward arrow, it's slightly leaning to the right, means it's moving forward. That's Microsoft's logo. I mean, that's the way it looks. So as they were going to rebrand, they went and they looked at the things that surrounded their logo. And some of those things were the flagship, which is the Windows logo. The Windows logo has grown over time. You can see it changing from this terrible thing in 1985 to bitmapped to glossy to bubbly, gradient, following the trends. You can also understand this if you look at the Windows logo and the Office logo. The Windows logo is actually the shape of a window. That's kind of interesting. It's got that cross in the middle showing it's a window. If you look at the Office logo, it's cubes, cubicles, right? It's the shape of a flower. It shows growth. The chairs are pulled together. They're in meeting, but then they can go back in their cubicles. It's kind of terrifying for me, honestly. When I look at the Microsoft Office logo, it makes me like sweat because I hate cubicles. But but that's who they're selling to. Don't forget, that's their market. Here's the thing: if you look at Microsoft, what they're doing lately, this doesn't look like this. This is the Surface and the Xbox. Man, these products are dystopian. They're sleek. They're beautiful. And this is not the products we see marketed. Of course, they're marketing Xbox, but their marketing doesn't look like the Surface. It doesn't reflect that. This is a guy in a shower or a wet subway tile somewhere and saying something that it makes no sense. So a grad student was like, well, I want to take a crack at it as you're rebranding. I'm going to rebrand Microsoft. So he thought of this idea, and I really like it, so I'm going to show it to you. This is the logo he came up with. It has this nice sans serif font, lowercase, kind of show approachability. It's got a ligature, which is the F and the T combined, and that actually was from the old logo too. I didn't mention that, but I'll show it to you eventually. And you can see that this leans more toward that Xbox vibe than this one. See, there's the ligature, that F and the T. Held on to that. He developed this mark that would go with the logo, and it's a window. Called it the slate. And it does look like when you're standing down on the street, it's what you see as you're standing. So that's the slate. Now he used the slate and the Surface and the Windows and Office. It's kind of a neat way to show all these products. I think it's pretty impressive if you ask me. Simple, it's clean, It's usable in a whole bunch of different ways. This is like other branding, put an image in it. This is like logo application on the surface. Branding in messaging, using that slate within there, and a billboard. I mean, honestly, when it comes right down to it, if you're thinking about the brand of Microsoft, when they were rebranding, you could have looked at any of these things and you could have said, what do we want to build on? Because that's what you do. You take your RPV and you build upon it. You take one or two things or maybe an overriding value and you say, this is what we're going to build our company on. So when Microsoft did that, they looked at it and they didn't think, yeah, I'm nimble. That's not really how it works. I mean, if they were nimble, they would have done the Xbox route, the Surface route. They would have gone to the future. They would have thought that way, but they thought backwards actually. And they looked at it and they said, Windows. That's the thing. That's what we're going to market. That's what we're going to brand upon. That's the kind of the flag we're going to put in the ground in our RPV. As you're thinking about this for your band, think, what is the flag I'm going to stake in the ground for this band? What's the thing that keeps popping out? Well, Microsoft chose Windows. Here's their logo. Kept that ligature. It's not that far off, honestly, from that grad student. Capital M, of course, but soft sans serif, that ligature, using that Windows logo. Each one of those Windows stood for a different value. Windows, Office, Xbox, and Bing, which is unfortunate because who cares about Bing? I mean, overall, they said Microsoft stood for Windows. Now, Apple's a little different. This is a logo from the 90s, this bubbly look. This is their OG, the one most of us remember. Gosh, when I say that, it's like, no, you don't remember that because that was way gone. Sorry. So as they moved forward, they got sleeker and then took away more and more effect until it was just this black apple. Now, Apple's look is this idea of simple, sleek operating system. This is their operating system the last time. And their idea is they were minimal and ambiguous. We're not hiding here. We're not trying to be something that we're not. We're trying to strip away the detail. We're not going to be this bubbly company. We're not trying to be overtly colorful. It's ambiguous. And they are. I mean, where will they go next? We don't know. And they're minimal. That's where they resign. And they really stuck their flag in that. And that's fine. Google, on the other hand, they're creepy a little bit. Google, talk about interesting people. Holy smokes. You got a friend who works for Google. Like, he must be a weirdo. No offense, Google people. I have a couple friends that work for Google, and they would say, well, I work for Google because I want to work in a treehouse. And I say, well, that's like crazy town, but also cool. But they also work 60 hours a week in that treehouse. But they can bring their cat. That's cool. Anyways, their logo hasn't transformed too much over the years, but it has made some moves, and we can look at this over the time. Now, this is their serif logo. This is before they made the move to this simpler, cleaner logo. And they would stake, they're friendly, helpful, and weird. I mean, they kind of own the world a little bit. The more you understand about Google and AdWords and the things that maybe you'll learn in a different digital branding class, you'll see how wacky Google is and how much they want to be perceived as helpful. And they are, for the most, if you're trying to take over the world, they're super helpful. Very weird. I think their logo looks a lot like the Gymboree logo, if you ask me. Here's the G's. This is the Google G. It's a Gymboree G. All I'm saying is that's a child's clothing. And the child's clothing place was first. And somebody said, this looks like the Gymboree. And they were like, we're Google. We don't care about the Gymboree. Fair enough. But it is childish. It's rainbow. It's the circus. I would never say you should have a rainbow logo for a development company. But Google doesn't care. Friendly. It looks friendly and childish, which kind of is helpful for them because they don't want to be looked at as a superpower, scary. They want to be looked at as helpful. So they're staking their flag there. Okay. So the RPV should always reflect reality and avoid cliche. Gap rebranded a couple of years ago. It was like a million-dollar branding opportunity. There's stories written about it. It's hilarious. But that was the Gap logo on the left, classic for years and years. And this is the one on the right. They developed a gradient swatch to show denim. That was it. They unveiled it. It was a laughing stock. They were laughed right out of the branding world. You should always avoid complexity in branding because honestly, doing something too complex, nothing I've shown you is complex. And that's because the more complex it is, the more confusing it can be to the viewer. Remember, you're staking a claim here. You don't want too much going on in your look. You should also embrace equity. This is the Coca-Cola logo. It's over 100 years old, over 120 years old. They hardly have changed it. They've modified it over time, but it is stuck to its guns. Um, the weirdest part is you can really see this through a lot of political signage. Political signs are a really big window into who people are. Obama, this is his first campaign against McCain and Palin. It looks fresh and young and different. No one had ever put out a sign like that. And then McCain and Palin, same old, the military star. It shows this, staid values, Republican versus Democrat, and this is the second campaign. Slab Serif, friendly, approachable. Romney and Ryan. Can you even remember these campaigns? Like, isn't it crazy? It feels like a lifetime ago. But anyways, Romney's tall and straight with those R's that are supposed to represent people's heads lining up for him. Totally different, right? If you look at Obama versus Romney, you can see this progressive versus republic or traditional. Values. It's really interesting if you really dissect. Look at that Obama and Biden sun coming up over the American heartland. It's supposed to be the flag, but it's also supposed to be a farm. So smart, so clean, effective. Now, as this changed over time, you can even see the difference between these two guys. Trump has these very no nonsense, drain the swamp type of look, and then Hillary has a light blue progressive energy with that forward moving arrow, even using her first name. And then the Clinton versus Sanders, you can see both using that progressive blue, but Clinton's is a little darker. Bernie's got these movement with these swooshes and the star, and it's playful, it's approachable. It's their personalities, if you think about it. Clinton's is so much less fun, right? And Bernie's like the good guy, but the guy didn't get elected. It's really interesting. But that movement forward with that swoopy lines and things, it's really kind of cool. So your resources, processes, and values for your band should really reflect reality. It should look forward, and it should show what your band actually is. We're going to move forward with this. I'm going to show you some things on here right now that are some things that you will be able to look at and be like, oh, this is my future, because this is your future. So these are pieces of projects that are Project 4 projects. This is David Bowie. You can see it just like how this page is laid out. You're gonna walk through the RPV on this poster. It's a 4-color poster. I'm gonna show why you chose what you chose, and we'll walk through all this next week again, but I wanted to show you some of the different things on here. This is Weezer. Group Love. Now these are all different layouts. Now I'll explain how to get to these, so don't feel like, oh my gosh, do I have to duplicate this? No, these are somebody taking somebody's RPV, taking an older musician or a musician, and I supply you a list, and then taking them into kind of the future with a new look, logo, photo, things like that. Rush, it's a couple Rush. This is really an interesting one. It's very like morose and dark. Weezer's, of course, bright and playful. Nirvana, making them look professional. I love this. This is a great one for me because this girl was very, she didn't really know much about Nirvana, and she took this idea of death and beauty and time, and you can kind of see it in that logo. It's got roses and skulls and clocks. I made that V out of it. And so the logo is complex a little bit, but so is Kurt Cobain, so she can make a case for it. And it showed this like what they were all about. I thought that she really made some awesome forward movement. Queen Kishibashi. Now, we will move forward in this as we in the next couple weeks and this is kind of one of those things that's going to take a little creativity. You're going to have to think outside the box. You're going to have to think, what could this be? What should this be? What doesn't make it generic? What would make this band jump into the future? Some of you guys are really have really great design sensibilities already developing. I'm really stoked to see what you come up with. So I will be in touch and we will choose some bands soon.